In this lecture, let's discuss different events that get triggered in case of tabs widget. So the 5 events that get triggered are create, before activate, activate, before load and load. So the create event gets triggered when we create a tabs widget. The before activate event gets triggered just before the tab is activated. The activate event gets triggered when a new panel is activated, that is even after the animation is completed. Before load is triggered when a remote tab is about to be activated, and the load event is triggered when a remote tab is completely loaded. So I'm using the same example that we have used to explain how to fetch external content and load it, so that we can also explain the before load and load events, because those two events get triggered in case of remote tab, that is when we fetch some external content. So this is the web page. To see the difference clearly, let me add some animation effect. So let me put curly braces, and for the hide and show, let me add some effects. So hide and show. For hide, let me specify the duration as 2000 and effect as explode. Okay, here I haven't put colon, that's why it's giving an error. And for show, let me add duration again as 2000 and effect as highlight. Okay, and now let's see, refresh, let me click this. See, it is getting exploded, getting displayed. Again getting exploded in 2 seconds, getting displayed in 2 seconds. Now I'm not going to explain the create event because we have seen it in many different sections. So first let us see before activate. The before activate event gets triggered when a tab is about to be activated. But before that, let me show you the different items we can get using different events. So as we have seen in previous sections, these callback functions will return event and UI, and the UI object will return different values for different events. So I have written it in a text document. This is before activate, and the UI object will return new tab, old tab, new panel and old panel. And even activate will return the same values, new tab, old tab, new panel and old panel. In case of before load, you will get 4 values: tab, panel, jQueryUI and Ajax settings. These two are related to Ajax. This jQueryUI is actually the object returned by the Ajax method in jQuery. If you are familiar with jQuery, you might be knowing this. This is actually an object which will give some information regarding the Ajax call. We will see how to use this jQueryUI in a while. Then the load events UI will return tab and panel. So let's first see before activate. It is returning 4 values: new tab, old tab, new panel and old panel. So let's write the code for before activate. So before activate, let me call the function, okay, and within this let me write event comma UI, and before activate will be triggered when a tab is about to be activated. So let me try to display the values in an alert box. So alert, so first old tab plus I want to get the value, so $UI dot old tab dot text. This will return the tab's value, that is tab means the heading actually. Then let me put a new line and put a plus again, and then let me copy this and paste it 4 times. Okay, and let me change this to new tab, and here as well new tab, here old panel, and here old panel, and here new panel, and this as well new panel. Okay, now let's see what are the values we get when we click a new tab. So refresh, let me click this. See, old tab is jQuery, this one. New tab is HTML page. Old panel is this content. And we are not getting the new panel. Why? It is not actually fetched at this point of time. So let me click OK. So we are getting this one. Again, if I click this, here the old tab is HTML page. The new tab is jQuery. Then old panel, we are seeing the HTML content, trial H3P, then testing. This is to check whether the external content can be loaded. And the new panel in this case is visible because this is actually preloaded content. So the before activate, as you see, gets triggered even before the animation is started. As soon as I click the tab, the before activate gets triggered. Even the animation is happening after the before activate event. Next, for the activate as well, we will be seeing the same values. Okay, so let's just write activate. We can get the same values as per this before activate, and activates UI will return the same values. So I'm just going to display a message only in this case, just to see when this activate event gets triggered. Okay, so here alert new tab is activated, and let's see when it gets triggered. Save, refresh. Let me click this. See, this is of before activate, and the animation is complete, and then we see the new tab is activated message, which means only after the animation is over the activate event gets triggered. So these are the one before activate and activate events. Next, for the remote tab, we have before load and load, and the before load will be triggered after the before activate event. So let's try before load. Okay, function, and within this I want to write event comma UI. Suppose we do not get the external content. To illustrate this, let me add one more. Okay, and let me specify some test.html. Such file is not actually available, so I want to intentionally break the fetching process. So here let me specify broken. Okay, this test.html is not available within the localhost UI folder. So what will happen as of now? Let's see that. Refresh. Okay, let me increase the width to say 600 so that all the tabs can be displayed in the same line. Okay, now HTML page, we are getting this one and also the activated message. Okay, now let me click this broken. We are getting the before activate, and see, no content is displayed. New tab is activated message is displayed, but no content is displayed. So what we can do, we can use this jQueryUI object to make sure that some proper message is displayed if the content is not fetched. So within this before load, what we can do is we can get UI.jQueryUI. This jQueryUI actually returns some methods. I will show you that. This is jQuery Ajax returned object jQueryUI, and these different methods can be used to get the required values. So jQueryUI.fail method will be called if some error occurs. So what we can do here I can specify .fail, and within this what I can do is I can call a function, and if the remote fetching is failed, we can display some message in the panel, right? So we can get the panel here. So $UI.panel will fetch the corresponding panel. So $UI.panel.html. Let me set some content here. Error in loading the tab. Okay. So now what will happen? If the remote fetching is failed, it will execute this line of code, which means it will display a message like this. Let's see that. Refresh. Let me click text file. This is of before activate. Okay. Then this is some dummy content because it is not the broken link. Let me click this one. This is before activate. And see error in loading the tab. And new tab is activated will be displayed when the activate event gets triggered. So using this before load, we can actually decide whether the content should be displayed or not. Similarly, using before activate, we can decide whether the content should be displayed or not. So this before load will be triggered when a remote tab is about to be activated. So here we can use this jQueryUI object which is returned by the Ajax method and use it to decide whether the remote fetching is failed or not. Okay, and for the load we can get tab and panel. We can display it if you want. Here after this, let me write load. So function, and within this let me write event comma UI, and within this what we can write, we can copy this from before activate if you want and remove this, and instead of old tab we can specify tab. It is UI.tab, and instead of new tab let's specify panel, and this is panel. So save, refresh. Let me click this. This is before activate. This is actually before load. So let me try to add the events at the beginning. So here before activate. Okay, and this is activate. Then this is, in case of before load, we can display a message alert before load, and finally for this let's display load. Okay, so that we can understand the event, that is which event is getting triggered. Refresh. Let me click this. This is before activate as you see here. Okay, then before load, in this case nothing will happen, isn't it? We have written the code in such a way that if the remote fetching fails, we have to display some message. Then this is load, and finally this is activate. And let me click the preloaded content. In that case, before activate is triggered, and then activate is getting triggered. Before load and load will not be triggered because those two are for remote tabs only. And as you see here, before activates UI returns 4 values: new tab, old tab, new panel and old panel. Even activates UI returns the same 4 values. Then in case of before load, UI returns tab, panel, jQueryUI and Ajax settings, and loads UI returns tab and panel. So these are the different events that get triggered in case of a tabs widget. They are create, before activate, activate, before load and load.